What's up, Milwaukee, and welcome to another edition of the Cream City Cast. We got a little shakeup in the roster today. We got Alexander Juno, of course, the editor for Cream City Central, joining us. And then we're also joined by another NBA draft expert, Gabe. And Gabe, I forgot your last name already, so you might have to drop that in there.
What's up? My name is Gabe Esquivel is my last name.
Yes, and then
what's up, though? Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on. And you want to just tell everyone a little bit about you, kind of what you do with your podcast and kind of articles and stuff like that?
Yeah, so I host the All Day Hoops Talk podcast, basically just basketball podcast, college basketball, NBA, and then I also write. I do college basketball for Def Pen, so I'll do their mock drafts, draft profiles, that stuff like that.
So rest assured, Bucks fans, we got it pretty covered over here with some serious high rollers here. So I guess we're going to start off the discussion here. Some dream picks for the Bucks if they fall down to 17. Maybe some top end guys that we think that might slip a little bit to the Bucks, or have the potential to maybe reach there. Al, I'll start with you. Who are some of those guys that you're kind of looking at, and how do you think they fit within the Bucks, and why do you think it would be a good idea if they did slip there?
I guess I'm just going to take the top 10 right off, like kind of the consensus mock draft, what everybody believes to be these top 10 prospects, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I got it. You got, starting at the top, you got DeAndre Ayton, Luka Doncic, Marvin Bagley, Michael Porter Jr., Mo Bamba, Trae Young, Colin Sexton, Wendell Carter Jr., Jaren Jackson Jr., and Mikal Bridges. I think those guys being available at 17 is not going to happen. I think their stock's too high. They would have to sustain a serious injury for them to be available at 17. There would just have to be something wrong. I think the only guy that you would even maybe think about is if Michael Porter Jr.'s back is seriously messed up, or if something else gets red flagged that they might be available that low. But even if Michael Porter Jr.'s back was messed up, I can't see him getting out of the lottery. So those are kind of the guys. I think they'd fit on the Bucks in various different ways if the Bucks had an opportunity to add them, but I honestly don't think it's worth talking about because I don't think the Bucks would package 17 and anybody to move up. And
no, for sure.
I was
talking more like kind of like those tweeners kind of that are going to be in like 11, maybe to 14 kind of guys that in a lot of mock drafts, they have them going there, but the draft is a crazy thing and you never know what's going to end up.
Yeah, I guess my guy for that range, the one guy that would be the dream pick that would fall for me would be somebody like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, just because he's really this athletic point guard that you could sort of profile in the upside, but also be an immediate contributor if the Bucks would look to move on from Eric Bledsoe. You could see him almost fitting in as the backup to Malcolm Brogdon, but I don't know. How about you guys?
Yeah, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander falling, I think that would be a great pick for Bucks. If he manages to fall, I think Lonnie Walker as well. I've seen him fall out of the lottery in some mock drafts, so I think Lonnie Walker is another guy who I think he would just be too good to pass up at 17. So he's obviously really athletic. He can score in a couple different ways, and he can defend. Most importantly, he would just add to a bunch of versatile defenders that are already in Milwaukee.
Yeah, I mean, I love Lonnie Walker. I think you watch, when you really break down a lot of his tape, you can really see how creative he is in the half court, especially when things aren't going very well, as they did for Miami this year in the half court. And, he's very aggressive. And I think that's kind of, a big part of what the Bucks need, and especially in a bench scorer that would, kind of moving like towards that. But I agree with Al here. I think Shai definitely would be my guy if he was there. There's no question. I mean, at 6'5", 6'6", he wasn't necessarily the top player recruited to Kentucky, but as the season carried on, you could really, really start to see that he was probably the best or one of the best prospects on the team.
Yeah, I guess my thoughts on Lonnie Walker would be he just made everybody like Bruce Brown Jr. was also supposed to be a prospect from that school, and he just sort of made him disappear even before the injury. He's super athletic. I guess another guy I would toss into the mix would be Kevin Knox. He's supposed to be off the board when the Bucks pick. He's one of those guys that's not really a top 10 pick, but anywhere after that, you'll see him considered. Uh, he could really do that Michael Beasley, Jabari Parker, Mirza Teletovic role that we've seen recently, where he comes off the bench and gives them some buckets. I don't think the Bucks should be looking at really a forward at that draft, especially if they want to retain Jabari. But if Kevin Knox is available, I think he's the one forward that you would be pretty okay selecting.
Yeah, I would agree. He also fits just kind of physically. The Bucks obviously they have a lot of switchable long defenders. Kevin Knox would just kind of go into that. He's 6'9", he's got almost a 7-foot wingspan. He's versatile, and I do think his primary role there would be a bench scorer. He'd come in, he can space the floor a little bit, score in a multitude of different ways. I think it, unless there was a perfect fit at 17, I would be hard pressed just for Milwaukee to pass on someone like Kevin Knox there.
Yeah. Do you guys think that the Bucks are kind of looking for a certain like a guard or forward, or you think they're just kind of at the point where we want the best basketball player that can help improve us and kind of push us to that next level where we're supposed to be?
I think that you can reasonably argue that they have needs at every position except forward, but it's not like they're loaded at forward either. They just have two guys that are going to play 36 minutes a game, and then those other 24 are sort of up for grabs at this point in time, depending on how guys like DJ Wilson and Sterling Brown progress over the summer. Especially if Jabari Parker doesn't come back, those minutes are up for grabs. But really, what I kind of like in the draft, especially where the Bucks sit, is shooting guards and centers. And ideally, the shooting guard would also be able to play a little bit of small forward. I think the Bucks have the point guard situation under wraps for next year, but with how Eric Bledsoe played in the playoffs, I don't think you can say that the point guard role is absolutely solved. And with how Milwaukee's been starved for point guard play this decade, I feel like they could always use another guy there.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Bucks don't necessarily have any pressing needs from what I've seen, but they could obviously use help in a couple of areas. I agree with the wing thing though. At 17, you're probably going to be in a position to grab one of the good wings, like I said, Lonnie Walker, Zaire Smith. There's a couple of guys there who could fill that 2-guard role, and I think that would be probably the best way to go in terms of fit for the Bucks.
Well, I see a lot of mock drafts. I know, Al, you mentioned that you kind of want a point guard or a small forward shooting guard kind of combo. I see a lot of Zaire Smith, Kyrie Thomas, even Aaron Holiday. And that also kind of has me wondering if, other draft people are kind of wondering that Eric Bledsoe situation kind of finished a little shaky at the end of last year. So maybe Aaron Holiday's that guy that can slip in, an upperclassman that, appears to be ready to play somewhat at the NBA level right now. And, he has a really long wingspan and he can surely fill it up.
Yeah. I think that I guess we should just to touch on each of those guys. Zaire Smith is one of my favorite guys that I'm seeing mocked to the Bucks. When you watch him play at Texas Tech this year, he was super dynamic. When you watch him on film, the stuff he does aren't things you usually see from a freshman. I think what makes him really interesting is that he wasn't a super highly rated prospect, and he really just blew up. I did see a report that he didn't interview super well at the combine, and I think a lot of it you kind of have to contribute to the fact that he's young and he's not one of those guys who's had the media circus following them. When you look at somebody like Marvin Bagley, like they're going to interview a little bit better because Marvin Bagley's been the guy that everybody wants to interview for the last 3 years of his life, where Zaire kind of just burst onto the scene last year. I'm worried that would translate to poor interviews with teams, but I would like to see, kind of what in a behind closed door setting he would say to the Bucks. I'm sorry, is it Kyrie Thomas or Kyrie Walk? What's the guy's name?
Kyrie Thomas from
Kyrie
Creighton.
Thomas. Kyrie Walker's a really good point guard who's going to play at Arizona State, or he's committed to at least, but that's another thing. Kyrie Thomas he's super physical. I love his game. You know, across 3 years at Creighton, he was a high volume 3-point shooter. I don't think the Bucks can go wrong with him. I think in many ways he's kind of similar to what they already have in Sterling Brown, but maybe a little bit better pedigree. Who was the last guy you had just touched on? Aaron Holiday.
Aaron Holiday.
Yeah, Aaron Holiday.
I'm a little less high on Aaron Holiday just because I was never really blown away with what he did at UCLA, but I do think that, you know, he would bring sort of this immediate contributor type thing with his experience.
Yeah, I pretty much I agree with a lot of what you said. Aaron Holiday, I'm not as high on as a lot of other people. I think taking him at 17 would probably be a bit of a stretch. Kyrie Thomas, I think, is really good, and like you mentioned, he is a little bit more of what the Bucks already have. But I think he's going to be a great 3-and-D player. I think he can be a really good rotation player for a very long time in that kind of 3-and-D role. He's got a 6'10" wingspan. He's only 6'3", so that's obviously going to help. That's going to help with the versatility and length that the Bucks already have on defense. And then he's obviously can space the floor a little bit more. The Bucks weren't the best 3-point shooting team last year. So adding Kyrie Thomas, who shot north of 40% last year, I think that would help. Help Milwaukee. They definitely couldn't go wrong there. And same with Zaire Smith. He's another 3-and-D mold, better athlete than Kyrie. Just really an absurd athlete. So having his length, his switchability would be tremendous help. But a guy like Zaire Smith or Kyrie Thomas, I think, would be kind of exactly what the doctor ordered for Milwaukee.
And I know there's sort of this adage that you can never have enough 3-and-D wings, but would it bother either of you that both of those guys, Kyrie Thomas and Zaire Smith, are a little bit on the shorter side, even though their wingspans are okay, especially with where we see switchability going in the conference finals right now?
You know, I don't think it would bother me necessarily. I think at this point, you know, it is kind of a form of positionless basketball in the NBA. And I think that, you know, if a guy can hoop, you can kind of throw him out there. Stats and analytics, you know, you actually have to look at that. But if you're talking about the eye test here, you know, these guys look like they're going to be able to contribute at the next level, but they're kind of two different cups of tea. Kyrie Thomas is a 3-and-D guy where you kind of know what you're going to get. I mean, he's a junior, consecutive times was the Big East Defensive Player in the Year in a conference where there's some pretty quality scorers in there. And, you know, every night he took the battle of taking the best, you know, of the opposing guard, and he still averaged 15 points, 4 assists or 4 rebounds. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. And then Zaire Smith, you know, I feel like he's a little bit more of a project pick because he is missing that consistent shooting tool. But, I mean, the athleticism and the ability to play in transition kind of fits hand in hand with kind of what the Bucks are trying to do. At least last year, I'm sure Budenholzer will implement a little bit more half court. But to play to Giannis' strengths, I mean, you definitely want to keep in transition as much as you can.
Yeah, and I think as far as you know how you were talking about the switchability and how, you know, they're you've seen a lot of the playoffs where they're trying to attack the smaller guys who, you know, aren't as versatile. I think with the Bucks specifically, it wouldn't be that big of a deal because even though, you know, Kyrie Thomas or Zaire Smith aren't the tallest players, the rest of the team around the Bucks generally is going to be long, be able to help a little bit if needed. So I think maybe in a vacuum that could be an issue that arises, but I think with the Bucks in that context specifically, it wouldn't be too much of an issue because you have long wingspans paired with guys who are long, quick, and can rotate for help defense rotations very, very easily.
So
should we move on to bigger guys?
Yeah, let's move on to those freakish fellas. You know, I think there is actually some pretty quality bigs that can be there at 17. Al, Gabe, I mean, I don't know if you just want to start throwing names out there. I mean, I think that's the best way to kind of do it.
Yeah, there's Rob Williams, who may be available at 17. And there's Mitchell Robinson, another guy who's pretty unknown.
I'm a big fan of him.
Yeah, I'm also a pretty big fan of him. He's really good. I would say those two are the most likely around 17. I think if you're in that 15 to 17 range, it's a good spot to need a big. Not that the Bucks necessarily need a big, but because Mitchell Robinson and Rob Williams they're high pedigree players. They would probably be very good values there. You could say Mo Wagner, but I'm not sure if Mo Wagner even really fits with the Bucks, and even then at 17, I think that'd be a little bit of a stretch as well.
Yeah, I guess to kind of dive into those two, love Rob Williams. His ability to rebound would kind of change this team. You know, he's a big rebounder. He sort of brings a physicality that neither John Henson or Thon Maker have. And I guess to expand on Thon Maker, if the Bucks draft a center, I think it says a lot about how they view Thon Maker, or that they think they can find a home for John Henson, because John Henson's under contract the next 2 years at a pretty good rate. And Thon Maker is, 1 year removed from being the number 10 overall pick, or I guess 2 years now. So if they do draft a center, hopefully that guy pairs with Thon going forward, but we don't know. And I guess Mitchell Robinson, the only thing I'm worried about is that his personality or something with his character is a little off. We're talking about a guy who didn't play basketball last year. I don't know what the situation with Western Kentucky was weird. He just all of a sudden stopped.
Yeah. He left.
Going.
He left after he initially rolled in campus like a normal student would, or no student athlete would in the summer. Left, then came back, practiced with the team for about another month, and then left again. And that was kind of that.
See, and the thing I thought was going to happen was I thought he was going to end up in Europe or China with some sort of pro league and, show us something. But he pulled out of that, and then he pulled out of the combine. And I guess you're going to have to get to see him in team workouts and stuff like that. But I got to know if this guy can play with guys at a higher level than, whatever circuit he played with when he played AAU basketball. From a physical standpoint and what he did in high school ball, he looks perfect. But I don't know if the Bucks are in a position where they can draft a guy who just played high school ball.
He's like that super hot girl that just like you want to wife up so bad, and then they get you so close and they rip your heart right away. Dude, I'm telling you, I want him to be loyal and faithful. He has commitment issues, and it's not a good thing. But if we could figure out how to make him that loyal, perfect trophy wife, he could be a very, very nice fit. Yeah. Now, I kind of have similar, not similar concerns, but some concerns about Robert Williams. He did play aside another pretty quality big in Tyler Davis, who was projected to actually have maybe a better season other than Robert Williams. And I don't have the stats in front of me, so I don't know how they actually finished up. But, I read a couple things and I saw on some tape that, his competitive level's not necessarily there on a nightly basis. And he kind of leaves you wanting more. And it also kind of brings me up some concerns with Tyler Davis being there. If Robert Williams was more of the main focus of the opposition, I feel like maybe his stats wouldn't be as, attractive as they are with 10-9 last year. I think the potential's there. And I think that he's definitely a guy that if you took him, that would be something that you need to address. But, some guys just aren't, at the college level. It's just they're not feeling it. And once they get to the NBA, a switch turns on and they're ready to go. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Robert Williams, that's a fair concern given he's not always there on a nightly basis. But I think when he is there, what he can do is pretty incredible. We saw what he did against North Carolina in the NCAA tournament. That was a huge game for him. He was definitely there for that game. And yeah, teams try to game plan around him. His athleticism is pretty absurd given his size and his length. I think he's less of a project than Robinson, obviously. But he still has some things to work on his own, just apart from his motor or apart from any of those concerns. But I mean, 6'10", 7'4" wingspan, incredibly athletic. I think he's worth taking a shot on. I'm just not sure as far as the Bucks go.
He sounds a hell of a lot like John Henson to me.
He's definitely more explosive than Henson, I would say.
He's more explosive, but I just worry, is he going to be able to add more things to his game that's going to take him to that next level? Because that's what the struggling concern that I've had with John Henson. And, he came out as this athletic freak, great rebounder, but other than two-hand dunks, I don't see much of he has a pretty solid, I guess, a little bit of a face-up game. Robert Williams does, but you want players that want to take it to the next level and keep adding their game. And I think, that's one thing his genetics and what type of body type he is, but it's another, like, you got to make sure that this guy wants to get better.
Yeah, and I think his game is definitely more like Clint Capella you see in Houston, and so I'm
Sure.
not sure if that would be like the perfect fit for Milwaukee, just because Milwaukee doesn't have the spacing that Houston has, obviously.
No,
So Williams doesn't have doesn't have much of a jump shot, doesn't have a great face-up game. He's still right now his projects just really as a rim diver like Capella, but that can be valuable in the right system. So
for
I think
sure.
he could immediately impact a team. I'm just not sure if the Bucks and their spacing situation right now, if that would be the best fit for either side.
What do you guys think about Jonte Porter? I've heard some rumblings about him, kind of, I mean, definitely overshadowed by his brother, and kind of, I think a lot of people tuned out Mizzou once Michael Porter went down and didn't really get to watch him a lot. But a pretty nice pick and pop player. He's just not a great athlete, not necessarily. He's pretty good at everything, but he's not necessarily great at that one thing. What are your guys' impressions on Jonte?
I'm super interested to see kind of where he lands. He's a guy I would be interested in for the Bucks, mainly due to his floor structuring ability. But like you note, he's not a super dynamic athlete. His combine was really sort of up and down. He didn't have super great measurables. They were, fine. He did really well in the front court shooting drill. Like among other front court players, he shot the ball at a pretty good clip. And he did actually well in the shuttle drill, but like his overall athleticism testing wasn't great. He's
Yeah.
not this high vertical guy, which I don't know how much you really need from a guy that's 6'10", but you worry that he's not going to be a rim protector, and you wonder how that sort of fits and if he has the ability to switch out on the perimeter. So I don't know. I'm kind of up and down about how I feel about him.
I mean,
His
he doesn't turn 19 until November 15th. So I mean, he's a young buck still.
He's very young, and I think that helps him. His combine, though, I would say overall definitely hurt him. He had the highest body fat percentage of anyone at the combine, the slowest sprint time of anyone at the combine, and he was tied for the worst max vert at anyone at the combine. So those obviously don't help his case. We knew he wasn't a great athlete. That kind of just compounds on that. And he's definitely a project though. He has some skills. He can shoot. Not quite consistently yet. Like you mentioned, he's kind of good at a bunch of different things, but he's not like great at any one thing. He's shown some defensive instincts. He's a pretty smart player. He's pretty long, and he's shown some defensive instincts. But you worry about his quickness. You worry about his ability to switch on guards. And I think overall he's just too much of a risk to take, really in the top 20.
Sure. I want to touch on like just three more guards that I think that might be in play here. Anfernee Simmons, we all know he did not attend college and went to the IMG Academy, but some rumors that he could be linked there. And then Troy Brown, I think lengthwise, I mean, and what he did at Oregon in his first year really jumped off the page to me. I mean, West Coast basketball, not a lot of people stay up to watch that, but he did some nice things. And a fellow SMU guy, I think Shake Milton, also had some things that kind of translate to an NBA ready player. 17, 4 and 4, and almost 1.5 steals a game. So I don't know if you guys, any order there, if you want to touch on them, go ahead.
I'll touch on all three. I'm super intrigued by Simons. I saw him play. I believe he was at the Steph Curry game last year. Watched that. So I've seen him play that time, and I think I've watched another game of his in high school or either AAU. He's a good athlete. He's sort of this interesting prospect. Again, the worry with him, like Robinson, is he played high school ball last year. What is he kind of going to improve? How big of a project is he? But on like some levels, I think he might be the highest upside point guard in this draft, depending on how you kind of feel about Sexton and Young and even Gilgeous-Alexander, but he might be the best athlete out of that bunch. Wow, I just spaced on the next two guys he said. Who are they again?
Simons, I'll jump on Simons. Yeah, Simons is very interesting. we don't even know if he is a point guard. Really, I think he probably works best off the ball as a primary scorer.
Sure.
I'm not sure if he has the passing, just the passing and facilitating ability to be a full time point guard, especially in the NBA. But I do think he can play a little bit of both guard positions, and that's fine. He's long. He's got a pretty good wingspan. At the combine, he measured at what did his wingspan measure at about 6'9", almost 6'9.5". So he's got a long wingspan. He's a pretty good athlete. Not necessarily extremely explosive, but he's very fluid, very quick. He knows how to use his length as well. So he's very tricky. Definitely a project. He probably wouldn't touch an NBA. Probably won't touch an NBA court next season. That wouldn't shock me. He's still very wiry, not strong at all. You worry about if he can finish through contact. His shot, his jumper is there for sure. Off the dribble, he's very nice. He can create for himself. You just worry about what he's going to do when he gets more athletic defenders because, like I was saying, he only played high school last year, so it's much different in terms of competition. But he's a very interesting project. I do think he has pretty high upside. For my money, I wouldn't take him in the top like 25-ish.
Sure.
But generally speaking, he's a very high upside prospect. Very, very intrigued.
And I don't know how he necessarily fits with the Bucks because I feel like the Bucks are kind of looking for that, if he's not going to help us this year, well, then he's definitely going to help us next year kind of guy. I don't think we're really at the time where we can kind of work on a guy that's going to be good in 3 years. But Simons, I mean, he can score the ball. I mean, he averaged 20 points in the Under Armour league, like the EYBL for Nike. And he had 11.5 in the top 100 camp too. So, I mean, he can score against some pretty proven guys. But like you said, Gabe, kind of in the half court, I see he kind of takes over that scorer's mentality and doesn't really try to run any fluid offense, at least from what I saw. Like I said, there's limited tape out there on him. But
it's so tough with these guys who haven't played anything above high school and AAU because you're going off them playing maybe 3 or 4 games against guys that are their level.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't.
It's tough. And then the 2 other guys, Al, were Troy Brown and Shake Milton, if you want to just give some quick points on them.
Yeah, Shake Milton, he's going to be a great shooter. People are really worried about how his athleticism will translate, and he's not – I believe he's sort of lead guard sized, but he doesn't really have lead guard skills. He's more of a spot-up guy. Not going to do a lot beyond that. I think he's got – decent shooting off the dribble. Troy Brown's actually interesting. He's going to be the first guy I saw play in high school that goes to the NBA. That's just kind of a random cool thing. I saw him when he was in Milwaukee a few years ago. Troy Brown's really interesting. Like you said, not a lot of people got to catch him this year because he was on the West Coast and Oregon wasn't an elite team this year, so people didn't watch them as much as they have in years past. But he's this sort of shooting guard size guy who can dribble a little bit, pass a little bit, and do a little bit of everything for you. But he's not going to be your primary playmaker. And he had kind of a bad year shooting. If he has a good year shooting, we might be talking about him as a lottery pick.
Yeah, Troy Brown is very interesting. I think defensively he fits right in with Milwaukee. He's long, he's versatile, he's quick. He can guard point guards. He can guard kind of 1 through 3, maybe even a small ball 4. He's 6'7", so he's tall. He's got 6'10" plus wingspan, so he's long. He's quick. What's interesting though is he grew up playing a lot of point guard, and so he has very good point guard skills at 6'7". He almost is kind of that point forward type. Like I mentioned, he's not a great shooter. He didn't have a great shooting year. That's not really his thing. He's more of a slasher. He can pass the ball very well. I think offensively it's a little muddy in terms of his fit with Milwaukee, but defensively he fits right in. If he could improve his shot, like Al said, he would be much more highly revered. I think he'd be locked to be a lottery pick with a better shot. And Shake Milton, Al kind of hit it right on the head with him. He's a big guard. He's 6'6". But again, you worry about his athleticism. You worry if he can create separation from defenders. That was a huge issue for him in the 5-on-5s of the combine. He couldn't create separation worth a lick. So that hurt him, but he should be a great spot-up shooter. And if he can play off the ball as a 2 or maybe even as a 3, he can spot-up shoot terrifically. He can defend a couple of positions, 2 and 3s, maybe even some 1s. But he's an interesting player who hurt himself at the combine by playing 5-on-5. You don't know if he has what it takes to be a lead guard, but he could be an off guard.
Yeah, I think Troy. I think like you mentioned about Troy Brown. I think he does a couple of things that Giannis primarily does, and I could see that kind of being. I mean, obviously, like he's not going to play over Giannis, but I just think like if you're looking to complement Giannis, which is the ultimate goal, I think that's maybe not the pick for you there, but nonetheless, I think he's going to be a pretty good player. All right, Al, I got a question for you. I want you to tell me all you know about my man, Desnanan Musa.
I'm going to defer this one to Gabe.
Musa he's a very interesting prospect. He's kind of like he's the next best international prospect after obviously Doncic. He's very interesting though. He's a scorer. That's definitely his thing. That's his MO. He proved he can score with the big boys at a very young age in Europe. He's got good size. He's definitely a combo forward type. I would say can play some three, maybe not ideal athleticism 4-3. Definitely could play a stretch four though. He's like 6'9", 6'10". His wingspan is not. He doesn't really have a plus wingspan. I don't think. I think it's rumored that his wingspan is kind of just the same as his body. So he's not going to press you on that aspect. He's not an elite athlete, but I think he's shown enough where he has the craft to score. He can kind of. He doesn't need to jump over you to score. He can finish through a little bit of contact. He can kind of, do a couple of spin moves, do some nice finesse moves, lay it up off the glass. Fine. He's comfortable in that way. He can shoot the three. He can shoot off the dribble. He can shoot spot up. He's a scorer. That's definitely his thing. Defensively, maybe Milwaukee takes a chance on him because defensively they can hide him because they have a bunch of other versatile defenders. But defensively is definitely where the problems lie. It's not even sure if he'll be even like a average defender, just because he doesn't have that athleticism. He doesn't have the athleticism to keep up with threes. Doesn't quite have the strength or the size to keep up with fours. So he's a little bit awkward in terms of his defense, but he can score. He can put the ball in the basket very well. A bench scoring rotational role will be his thing for a long time.
Yeah, I've seen that he needs to transform his body a little bit towards an NBA body. I mean, he's kind of getting away with it in Europe right now. I mean, he was the leading scorer in the U16 championships 2 seasons in a row, and then he went on to be the leading scorer in the U17 championships. So, I mean, the guy can fill it up for sure, and, he's a good ball handler. He's a pretty decent ball handler, and he's really good at creating contact and drawing fouls, apparently, is what I read. I'm just the messenger there. I couldn't tell you for sure if he can do that, but that's what I read. But I don't know. That's kind of how I feel about him.
Should we talk about some guys that might sort of be like reaches at this point, but could work their way up? I'm thinking guys like Kevin. How do you pronounce his last? Yeah, Kevin Huerter. Maybe
the new White Mamba.
Oh, we could talk about Dante DiVincenzo. Let's start with those two.
Huerter is a lot of fun. He really exploded at the combine, but he can fill it up. I mean, he knows how to score. I know a lot of like the perception about him was just that he was just a shooter, but he can take it inside. He can score. He can he can create some separation, score off the dribble, do what he needs to do. He can defend. He's not going to be some sort of elite defender ever, but I think he can be a plus, even if it's only by a little bit. He can be a plus defender. His wingspan isn't great, so he may not have a ton of upside on that aspect, but I think he can be plus. He's smart enough. He's tough enough. DiVincenzo is also a lot of fun. I like DiVincenzo slightly more than Huerter. 6'5", he's got pretty long arms. He's a great athlete. I think he was tied for the highest max vert at the combine, I believe. A terrific athlete. He can score at all 3 levels. We saw what he could do at Villanova. We saw in the national championship. He can just fill it up. He scores at all 3 levels. He can dunk on you. He can shoot over you, and he defends. He defends really well. He's really tough. He looks like he likes playing defense. He plays with that energy. He's got quick feet. He's strong, and he's a better defender than Huerter, and I think that's why I kind of give him that edge. But DiVincenzo is a lot of fun for me. I'm not sure at the moment if I would take him at 17, but he's only trending up. Yeah,
and I think a guy that could also be at 17 that people are starting to talk about a little bit is Keita Bates-Diop. he really jumped onto the scene with Ohio State this year, as they actually had a pretty decent regular season. You know, he filled it up, you know, 19, I think it was 19.8 points per game and almost 9 rebounds a game. That kind of seems like it fits the Bucks pretty well.
The only problem I have with him is that he's going to play the same positions as our two best players, and I don't know, what his upside is. He's going to be stuck in sort of a bench role here for a long time, and I don't know if he's the type of talent like we were talking about with Kevin Knox, where you just can't pass on him at 17. I think that's right in his range, is like 16 to 20, and where his talent lies, but I'm not really sure about anything else about him. But like you said, he can put the ball in the basket.
Yeah, he's very versatile. He's another guy who's not great at anything, but he's really good at a couple of things. For Milwaukee, I don't see why that would, I don't see how that would fit. Generally speaking, though, like I said, that would be a decent range for him. But yeah, for Milwaukee, he's kind of that combo forward type, and it's just not really anything that they need right now.
What do you guys think about Gary Trent? Not necessarily for the Bucks, but just kind of like how he kind of translates to the NBA.
I think it's interesting. He's a guy who's going to be a knockdown shooter, but I got to know what he can do besides that, because he didn't really do much besides that in college, and he didn't do much besides that. I don't know. I don't think he's going to be really athletic enough at the next level. He's a guy that I've seen kind of fall down boards, just because if he's not playing, you're not going to be impressed with what he's doing on the court, because his off the court stuff isn't fantastic. You're not going to be talking about his wingspan or his vert.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. Definitely more of a early to mid second rounder type of player. But I think he actually surprised people with his athleticism at the combine. He looked a little bit more jumpy and more twitchy than people had previously thought. But yeah, I mean, apart from being a spot-up shooter, we're not really sure what else we're going to get from him. He showed a little bit of ability to straight line drive, and at times showed some athleticism to finish around the basket. But I think he struggles through contact. He's not great at creating separation or even shooting off the dribble, in the mid-range space. You're very unsure about what exactly you're going to get with him.
Yeah, I could definitely see him honestly falling to one of those heavy hitters at the end of the first round if a team wants to take a chance on him, like a Golden State or Rockets, or the Rockets don't have their pick, but like Golden State or the Sixers or maybe even the Celtics, because the ability to shoot is, I think that's probably the most important thing in the NBA, and you can never grab too many shooters in my eyes. But I don't know. That's where I kind of think that he might end up. All right, guys, now let's get down to it. I'm not going to put a gun to your head, but I want to know what you guys think the Bucks are going to go with at 17, if we can give our predictions at this point.
I'll let Gabe start.
Yeah, please.
I'll go Zaire Smith. Zaire Smith ranked 16 on my board now. My last mock, I had the Bucks taking Zaire, so I'll kind of stick with that at the moment. He's long. That helps him on defense. Twitchy can help on defense. Space the floor helps him on offense. Kind of everything the Bucks would want going Zaire.
I should have gone first because my answer is kind of a cop-out now, because I'm also going to say Zaire Smith on the piece I wrote earlier this week.
You can't do that.
Okay. If I'll pick somebody else just because I would have said a lot of the same things. I guess I'm going to go with Kyrie Thomas, because I don't think Lonnie Walker or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will be there, but I think the Bucks kind of are in a good spot to grab somebody who's a good 3-and-D player. People say it all the time on Twitter. They say it all the time in their writing. You can't have enough 3-and-D players. You can't have enough shooters. And, with Zaire and Lonnie and Kyrie, we're talking about 3 guys who should be good shooters and good defenders at the next level. Guys who will be able to play when you get to the conference finals. They're not guys that you can play off the court. They don't project to have the flaws that some of the problem players do on either end of the court. And I think that's really what the Bucks need, because I don't think that they're going to want to buy into a project center, and I don't think they want a project point guard.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to go with you too. I think Kyrie Thomas is going to be the pick. And I think it's more so, I think they love obviously what Zaire does. And I think that, you know, his athleticism is just amazing to think about what he can do with Giannis. And, you know, I think that could be there. But I think Kyrie Thomas is the guy just based off his shooting ability. I mean, he's a lockdown defender, 2-time Big East Defensive Player of the Year, like I said. And, you know, he's 22, and the Bucks have had pretty good recent success with older guys in the draft and how they translated, like with Sterling and Malcolm, to just name a few. And I think that, you know, when it comes down to it, we need to figure out how we're going to get to a conference finals within the next 2 years. And I think Kyrie Thomas kind of gets them there a little bit quicker than any other guy does. But let us just put out this disclaimer that this is the Milwaukee Bucks, and I have no idea who they're going to pick because they just sometimes just shock you.
I really think we could say that about the last 3 drafts. When you look at DJ Wilson, Thon Maker, and Rashad Vaughn, none of them were really guys mocked in that range. I actually liked all of the picks, which isn't aging super well, so I guess that says a lot about my analysis. But, you know, with John Hammond, we saw that he loved to draft guys who were McDonald's All-Americans, and I guess that was something you could say about Rashad Vaughn. Even Johnny O'Brien was McDonald's All-American. We'll see. We'll see if John Horst goes sort of a different way, and we're going to learn a lot about him. You know, he was hired shortly before the draft last year, and we'll see if he has kind of different preferences. I don't know if we can learn anything about the Bucks draft by looking at what Coach Budenholzer has liked in his time, just because I do think he's going to be in the war room that night. And in his interviews already, he's stated that, you know, he sort of wants to be involved in decisions, but not controlling them, just to be considered. And I think that's a healthy GM coach relationship. But so I don't really know. I think, you know, we know that he can develop wing players. So that's why I kind of like Zaire and Kyrie, because I think he's going to get a lot out of them. But
sure. Well, I want to ask one more question to end it off. Who is your rookie of the year? Then I'll start with you, Gabe.
Oh, wow. That's a good question. If I'm going rookie of the year, I will go out on a limb and say, give me, just give me Jaren Jackson, I guess. Jaren Jackson.
That's what I was thinking too.
I gotta go with Luka Doncic. I think Luka is gonna be.
Whoa, Mr. Euro over there.
He's actually gonna have the chance to score a little bit more, and I think scoring usually wins this award. And while I like what Jaren Jackson's gonna bring defensively, I've seen some people think that Jaren Jackson peaks as like a 14-8 guy. And so as a rookie, he might not even break double digits in scoring. And I think that's going to matter. We already know that Luka Doncic can score it. I am kind of biased to say that whoever the Phoenix Suns draft will probably not win Rookie of the Year. They're already going to be playing with a mega scorer and Devin Booker, and that's going to deflate their numbers. What we saw from kind of the 2 candidates this year is Ben Simmons just had Embiid on his team. There wasn't really anybody else. And Donovan Mitchell had the run of the show. So it's kind of difficult to go from that. If Luka would end up in Sacramento, I think it's like a lock that he's Rookie of the Year. But I guess so. Maybe Sacramento's pick will be my favorite, which is kind of a cop-out. But
yeah, I mean, I can definitely see why you'd say that. I will say my sleeper pick for Rookie of the Year is going to be actually Michael Porter Jr. I think depending on where he falls and kind of what happens with that, I mean, if he goes to Cleveland and LeBron leaves, I mean, there's a really good chance that he could put up those numbers in Cleveland. I mean, yeah, the back issue, and that is a huge red flag, but I mean, number 1 player in the country, and I guess we'll see, you know?
Yeah. He's if he wouldn't have gotten hurt, I do think he would be in the conversation for number 1 pick. He was in the conversation before his injury, and I think people are just worried now. So we'll see.
I mean, a 6'10" small forward. Give me all of that. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, on this edition of the Cream City Cast, our draft edition. you guys want to drop your socials real quick and kind of where they can find your stuff. Gabe, you want to go ahead first?
Yeah, so you can find me on Twitter at All Day Sport Talk, just spelled directly like that, all one word, All Day Sport Talk.
Perfect. And you, Al?
I'm the editor-in-chief at Cream City Central. My Twitter handle is at JunesFashiz. That's spelled basically exactly like you would think it would be, but just find my stuff on our site and follow the links below.
Yeah, for sure. You can follow me at DP_hoops. And then, like Al said, you can check all of our articles. We're going to have a nice, really nice spread of draft kind of reviews of the prospects that are potentially going to be there at 17 coming up and coming out soon. And you can check us out always at creamcitycentral.com. Our Twitter's at Cream City Central. Thank you guys once again for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, go Bucks.